The Connection Show. Inspiring hope, health, healing, connecting the dots of your story and transforming your life. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds.
The Connection Show, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. And joining me from the northern part of the world in Canada is Kerry George. Welcome to the show today, Kerry.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me, Jill.
Well, we're grateful you could jump on because we are really excited about your company, CIBN, that connects people with networking. But we were more concerned about and excited to know who you are, the founder. So we're going to jump on in just a moment to learn all about Kerry's life and how she ended up becoming who she is today. Before we begin, though, we'd love to share with you an amazing event that's going to be taking place in the beautiful Ozark Mountains of Branson, Missouri, August 19th and 20th. It's called Resilient Bravehearts. I'm going to flash to the flyer. It's a women's conference for such a time as this to inspire hope, health, and healing in the world. So many young girls have lost hope through all the different things that they're going through in life. And we really truly believe that us older women, and I use the word older meaning say like 30 up, need to be an inspiration to mentor to these young girls. So if you go to the website, which is braveheartworkshops.com, braveheartworkshops.com, you'll see all the details pertaining to this amazing event coming to Branson. We're going to have topics on leadership skills, career development, body image, nutrition, purity, femininity, overcoming addictions, codependency, eating disorders. So the topics will be a multitude. And we really think that every girl and woman from around the world should come to this event, connect. We'll have breakout sessions. And I really do believe we're all courageous and fearless Queen Esthers for such a time as this. So with that, we hope you'll register and come to Branson. Now, I also wanted to let everyone know that Queen Esther, the actual play, Esther, is in Branson currently, playing at the Sight and Sound. So if you get your tickets to the conference, come in 2 days early and make sure on either the 17th or 18th, you go to Sight and Sound and see the play Esther. They are selling out about a month in advance, so buy your Esther tickets now and then register for the conference. So without further ado, take us on a journey, Kerry, to little Kerry and bring us through grammar school, junior high, high school, if you went off to college, if you got married, any highlights of your life. We'd love to connect the dots of your story.
Well, I have to take you back a long time. Seems like it was more than 100 years ago, right after we got off the Ark. But back then, when I was little, I grew up in a place called Saskatchewan. So for those of you who are from across the United States, you might be wondering, is that really a place? It really is. There's really a place called Saskatchewan. It's a province in Canada. It's in the interior. And my father, my family were farmers. So I grew up on a farm about 2 miles from the closest town, which had about 200 people in it at that time. So very small place in the middle of nowhere, about 3 hours away from any city of more than 100,000 people. So really remote. And as I was growing up and going to school, you know, I think I was like most kids from the area. When I graduated high school, I decided that I liked sales, but I also had some adventure in me. So I went and joined the Army. So I was in the Canadian military.
Wow.
And so I guess that's one of the little known fun facts about Kerry George is that I do know how to fire a rifle and I can knock the eye out of a sparrow at 100 paces.
And you're a courageous, fearless woman who's not afraid to protect yourself.
No comment. But yes, no, those were things we grew up on the farm, handling firearms. So it was nothing for me to be part of that. And my grandfather had been in the Second World War, and I really, wanted to aspire to be more like him. My grandfather on my mom's side is Ukrainian. And even to this day, even though my last name is George, we do follow some Ukrainian traditions. In fact, if you look at my fingernails, they've been decorated at Easter time right now with Pisanki patterns on them, which is Ukrainian traditional patterns for on Easter eggs. So it's a strong part of our culture growing up, the Ukrainian background and Ukrainian foods of pierogies and cabbage rolls and things like that. In my early years as a young adult, after some military time, I started in sales. And I have to say, in the beginning, I was horrible at it, like really, really bad at sales. I remember starting with this company, and we were so afraid if people asked you, is this that thing, because it was a network marketing company, and I was brand new to any kind of sales. And I remember we used to stack the pots up on the table, and if somebody asked us the dreaded question, like, is this that thing, we would knock the pots onto the floor, and I'd go crash, and we go, oh, something just happened, I gotta go quick. That was the capacity of my sales skills. It was pretty bad.
Well, let's pause the video for just a moment, because we went through your whole life in like 5 minutes. So let's go back to days on the farm. And as a little girl, are you an only child? Do you have siblings?
I do. I have two brothers. One is 3 years younger than I am, and the other one was a later addition. He's 14 years younger than I am. So by the time I was leaving the home, I actually left the home pretty early. I was 16 years old and out on my own, and put myself through high school in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, which has about 17,000 people, and it's a small city about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from where I grew up. And that's kind of how I started my young adult life. My childhood was fun. It was full of, things to do on the farm. And I was pretty protected and sheltered, I think, growing up. We didn't have anyone in our family that was, had struggled with things like alcoholism, or we didn't have people in our life that, I wasn't beaten as a child. I'd never been around anything, that was traumatic. But in my early adult years, that was about to change. And I didn't know what I was about to encounter, because I had never seen anything like it. And along came someone who was tall, dark, and handsome, and dashing, and swept me off my feet. And in a very short time, I found myself caught up in a very abusive relationship. And I had no filters and nothing to measure this by. I just never seen anything like it. And after I had married him, I just kept thinking that the good guy was going to come back. That certainly this was a phase he was going through, because I didn't understand how that worked. And I didn't understand that he had, kind of pretended to be something that he wasn't to capture me. And once I was captured and in his control, that's when I started having babies. And, it was really a process to get free of that. I got free and went back and got free. And, fortunately, I didn't do it too many times. I don't know, the national average is 9 times a woman will return to her abuser. I actually only returned once. It was enough for me. And I got out of there and started my life again, all over again as a young woman. I'd had my first child at 25. And so now I was kind of starting all over again at 30, and needing a place to kind of put down roots and figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I had a powerful experience with God at that point. And I decided that as a result, I wanted to become a pastor. And I had kind of 2 things that was of interest to me. One was business and one was pastoring. And I was always interested in business. I was always interested in things of finance. But those early years, from my 30s on, I went full-heartedly into the ministry and wrote books and Bible studies and traveled and, really helped people get to know Jesus better. And I was on that path for 14 years and had a glorious time. working with people and helping them to overcome things and experience transformation in their life. Ran a small ministry in a small town, and then started to expand it through house churches, through the southern part of the province of Alberta, and started to have a much larger impact, especially as one of my books took off, and I got on television programs. I was on 100 Huntley Street. In Canada, that's like the big deal, right? As well as some others. And those were the things that kind of molded me through the years. I had experience in the military, and then in sales, and then in the ministry. And it was interesting because for me, a lot of it was really evangelism. He was working with people and winning their hearts and showing them, a better way.
So pause a moment and tell us, how did you come to Jesus? How did you come to a relationship with Jesus Christ? How did that take place?
Well, when I was a kid, I had started, I think, the process. I was interested. I was always looking at things that were spiritual. And I looked at a lot of things that were spiritual. I was also interested in witchcraft when I was a child. I was, the television shows and the things, that would draw you in, of how cool it would be, to have magical powers. And, but the magical powers didn't save me or help me when I had nightmares. And I had a lot of nightmares when I was a kid. And what I found was, in school, they gave me this little Gideon's Bible. Remember when they handed those out, the little red ones? Well, I got one when I was a kid, and that was a life-changing, an altering moment, really, because that little book had this schedule in it to read regularly, to read every day. And I really didn't understand the King James version of this little red Gideon's Bible that I was reading. But what I did know is when I read that before bed, I had no nightmares. So I started then, reading the Bible. And in my teenage years, having left home so young, I really had no guidance or support in faith. And so I went in another direction, and I was not pursuing that. Yet there was hints of it along the way, Jill. When my first child was born, I named him Zachariah. Okay. And Zachariah means the Lord has remembered me. That's what it means. And then I had another child. His name was Joshua. And Joshua means the Lord is my salvation. And my third child's name is Naomi. And Naomi means the blessing and the joy of the Lord. So here I had given these names to my children during a process where I really wasn't following God at all. And what happened was that I had some people, when I was pregnant with my second child, I had some people reach out to me and ask me if I would come to a prayer meeting with them. And it was a powerful prayer meeting. It was a very moving prayer meeting. In fact, it was quite miraculous. We went into a small home, and we were praying, and they stood up and started to pray and talk out loud and say, praise the Lord, glory to God. And I just kind of followed suit because it felt like fun. And then the next thing I knew, I was laying on the floor, and we all were. We got knocked down by the power of God. And I was forever changed in that moment. And I had a real Saul experience on the road to Damascus. It just completely changed me. And prior to that, I had really, I jokingly say I was a liar, a whore, and a thief, and those were my good points. and after that happened, I just wasn't interested in doing any of that stuff. I just was no judgment. I just didn't want to. And all I wanted to do was be around Jesus. I just wanted to read the Bible, and I wanted to spend time with God. And the opportunity came up to go to Bible school. And at that point, I had left my husband, and here I was, a woman out on my own, and now I'm a single mom. And I have to say, Jill, nobody wakes up one day as a little girl and says, when I grow up, I want to be a single mom. No one says that.
Or when I grow up, I want to be involved in a relationship with domestic violence. That's what I long for.
Right? This is not on our wish list. It's certainly not on a to-do list. And having going through that, like it's traumatic, but you find your path. And I found my path through that, and Jesus provided solace, answers, and peace for me. And it gave me a powerful testimony to impact others as well, because, healed people heal others.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for going back, because that's a huge part of your story. Huge.
Yes.
And I'm still stuck on one part. And the one thing that I love about God and him giving me this show, because this show is not my show, this is his show. He told me to start this to help people to connect the dots of story. And he showed me in script, and it's really funny, Carrie, because since you are a pastor and a biblical scholar, when I started to watch the movie Chosen, and I'm watching it one night, and this was like about 3 days after God told me that I was supposed to change my tagline on my podcast show from Renew, Restore, and Reconnect in Community, which was all about giving people a platform to talk about their company so that I could direct people to the person's company so they could increase their sales. So when I started the show, it was about helping others build their business. And so we talked about their business through the whole show. And then we directed people so that person could have clients. Well, after a year of doing it, God says, okay, now what we really need to do is we really need to inspire hope, health, and healing in the world. And I said, tell me more. And he goes, the hope needs to come from me, not their business. Hope in me. Their health needs to come and come to manifestation because I reside inside of them. Once you've invited me in, your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And then people started to need healing of their mind from anxiety, depression, fear during COVID. And so he said, so we need to have hope, health, and healing. And he said, and we need to connect the dots of story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that lives could be transformed. And he said, that's why when I walked the face of the earth, I shared accounts, parables, and stories for transformation. So I listened to The Chosen one day, and Matthew was scribing for Jesus. And he said, I don't understand what I'm writing about. Why am I doing this? And Jesus sat there looking at Matthew with a very, very beautiful smile. And he said, Matthew, it's so lives could be transformed. We tell stories so lives could be transformed. So go back a moment, because God always tells me when to go back in the frame, to that 16-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. And what was taking place that you left home at 16 and didn't stay at home till you were 18?
Willfulness, really. I wasn't leaving a bad situation or fleeing parents that were, hard on me or in a possible situation. I actually, from a very early age, was always talking about how I was going to leave home. I didn't want to live on the farm. This place is so remote. I wanted to be a city girl, and I wanted to be an actress, and I wanted to be a singer, and I wanted to be famous. And none of that was going to happen in Lintlaw, Saskatchewan. And I just felt like I didn't fit there, that something was, out. And so by the time I was 15 or 16, my parents decided to stop fighting this attitude that this little girl had. Mm-hmm. And just said, well, you want to go, you go. I think they thought I'd be right back. I think they thought I would leave and I would, tuck tail and run when I had to deal with the world. But I didn't. I really was that independent, and I really was mature in ways that most young people weren't. I went and got a job, and I actually put myself through high school, and I graduated on time. And over the years, Jill, I've met many people who left home early, and that was not the case for very many of them. They usually would be, sidetracked by life, as soon as they would leave their parents' home. But I was very purpose driven to get that grade 12 education.
So where did you leave home and go live? Where did you go?
I left Lintlaw, Saskatchewan. I went to Yorkton, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hours drive away. For us on the farm, that was a long distance. Today, I drive that regularly without even thinking about it. But for us back then, many people grew up in Lintlaw and never left there. So, we would take a trip to the city once a year. So for me to be 2 hours away from my father's house I was on my own. And this was before cell phones, and
Yeah.
this was before bank transfers and emails and stuff like this, where you can just send some money to somebody. There was none of that. When I left, I think they were thinking I'm going to make it or fail. They probably thought I was going to be right back.
So
And I went
where did you
and
go?
did it.
Where did you go? Where did you live? I mean, not the city, but did you live in a boarding home? Where did you go to live? Did you get an apartment? And how did
Well, I
you?
was pretty transient for the first couple of years. Actually, when I first moved to the city, I had other family members there, and I went to stay with them. And I think that's what made my family at home comfortable that I was leaving. But I just got there, and they received a word that their job was changing, and they were going to be leaving like quickly within 30 days or 2 months or something. So I had to make other arrangements, which I did. And I was excited to attend a larger high school. There was a really big high school in Yorkton, Saskatchewan called the Yorkton Regional, and they have a strong emphasis on the arts, music, singing, musicals, that kind of stuff. And for me, that was a dream. That's why I was there. I wanted to be part of that. It was the closest thing to a movie star that I could think of in Little Girl in Saskatchewan, okay? I'm sure it wasn't all that in a bag of chips compared to Hollywood. But it's probably a good thing I didn't run off to Hollywood, because then I might have really got myself in trouble.
So when your relatives left, had you in 30 days had you saved enough money to get your own apartment? Or
No, I looked around and found a place where I could get room and board at a lady's house and look after her children. And then I found another place. That situation didn't last very long, because I was a rebellious teenager, and she was actually a Christian woman who probably prayed her heart out for me. I didn't fit very well in that environment at that point yet. So the next thing was I had a job, and I made some money. So I rented a room, and then I went to another place. And I think I probably moved about 15 times over 2 years while I finished high school.
okay,
But I did it. I got through. I made it through.
You rented rooms in people's homes and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes I had enough to rent an apartment for a while. And it was one of the driving, motivating factors of why I got into the military, because you could start with the reserves right there in town. And they actually took over the care of my life when I joined them. So they paid for my apartment, and they set me up. Now all I had to do is be a weekend warrior and go out and take the training every weekend. And I had to give them my summer and all that. But my last year of high school, I was my first year in the reserves in the military. And that was a life-changing experience for me. It's where I learned discipline. And it's where I learned teamwork. And I also learned that I could not quit. They had me actually in kind of a hook, because they told me if I quit, I would owe the government all this money. So I had to stay with them till the end of the program, and I had to take a position in an office as an administrator, right out of high school. So I had this obligation to fulfill this duty, and that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow for a while. And
that helped to break some of that strong-willed child out of you too. The discipline, yeah.
And it made me a finisher. Like I actually stopped very early in those years. I stopped abandoning the things that I started, and I started finishing things.
That's great. So let's move forward again, back to your pastoring, and you're now divorced from your abusive husband. You've now got children. So the trajectory of your life with relationships, did you find someone else, remarry, or have you remained as a single mom all these years?
I was a single mom for 17 years. Mm-hmm. It's only been in the last 7 years, actually, since I went into business. I went into business about 10 years ago. And in the last 7 years, I found somebody that has changed my life again. And I now have that significant other in my life that I didn't have for many years. When my kids were small, first of all, I was very devoted to Jesus. I'd had a tremendous experience with him, which many people don't have. And for me, that answered and settled a lot of questions in my life. I think many people are afraid to be alone. And I never felt like I was alone. I always felt like Holy Spirit was with me. And I felt like I had, God right with me and I could hear his voice. So I wasn't lonely and I wasn't afraid. And I had these 3 little kids who needed me, and I had a church that needed me. So I really wasn't looking like I needed somebody. I always had my mind open to the fact that someone could come along but I was looking for somebody that I could add value to, that they would add value to me. And I was very strong in that opinion. So there were a few that came along and tried to grab my attention. And, I just was not that interested because I was looking for someone who would add value. And I was also looking for, I think one of the most important things in a relationship that I feel is when you find that person in your life that you just know is the one. When I look across the room and my eyes meet his, I don't want to question for a second that he loves me. I want to know that I know that he loves me. I want to be able to see it in his eyes. And for me, that was one of the big things that I couldn't live without. If I'm going to have a relationship with someone, I want to be secure in that relationship and just know that I know that it's good.
So you are married now? You're married or dating?
Yeah, today, yeah.
You're married now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. So let's transition then. So you said about 10 years ago, you went into business for yourself. If you could share just a little bit of how did that develop and take place?
Well, I had actually been thinking about it for a long time. In fact, I saw that in the path for me in the early years. It just wasn't the right timing at first. And the ministry was all consuming, and I really wasn't looking for anything else. And as time went on, I realized, though, that I have a short mind for business, and I felt like there was something else there that God wanted me to do. So as time went on, I decided that I was more interested in that, and I wrote another book, and it never made it to publication yet. It may come out in publication in the next year or so now. But the first book I had written was called Juicy Fruit Christianity, and it was about living the life full of the Holy Spirit and being full of the fruit of the Spirit. And the second book that I'd worked on for some time was called Made to Multiply. And that book was all about multiplying everything, including finances. And the reason I didn't publish it was at that time, I wasn't multiplying finances. And I felt that it would not be authentic to publish it. So I put it on the shelf. But that was kind of the beginning of the whole business process, because here I wrote this book, and 3 years after I've written the book, I'm still no closer to fulfilling that kind of self-prophecy, right? So some changes in our life started to happen. I realized my daughter and my kids were going to have some financial needs that I wasn't able to supply at that point. And I felt that the best course of action would be to go into business. And I kind of felt like it was the time. It's time to do that. So I didn't start out with the great big business network empire that we have today, CIBN Connect. My first gig was I was good at social media when social media was brand new. So I decided I would try to offer a service to business owners to see if that might be of interest to them. And turns out it was of interest to them. But that's how I was introduced to business networking, because I went out to networks, to meet with people and exchange business cards and have these times together with them. And when that would happen, I would meet my potential clients, and I realized, oh my gosh, this works. And this is easy and it's fun and I can do this. And of course, being a pastor, I was a very social person. So this was just a new community of people to be social with. And just like people in the church needed to be led, I found that to be true in business as well. So I had a ready and willing crowd that was wanting to hear what I had to share about business, about life, and about social media and all the things that I knew about. So it opened doors for me. And at first, I just volunteered for a business network. Most of them run off of volunteerism, and that one was no different. And I started volunteering. And I started to see that network grow and change along, and I was getting business from it. So when the owner of it wanted to retire, I was like, you can't shut this down. I'm getting business here and I love this. You can't just get rid of it. He says, well, why don't you take it then? So that was our first business network, because I bought this citywide network in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, a city of about 1 million people. Started to grow it. Now I had two businesses going back and forth like this, right? I got the networking business I'm trying to grow and trying to monetize. And on the other side, I've got marketing, online marketing. I'm trying to create Facebook pages and do all this stuff. And I'm going back and forth to this and that. And, you know, the Bible says you can't serve two masters. And I was kind of like having put in both worlds and trying to straddle a fence. And it was hard to do. So it didn't take very long for me to realize that I felt more called to be leading the business network than I was to just be doing marketing. And my knowledge of marketing was something that business owners did need, but that could be given to them through the networking platform. And so early in our early days in 2011, I created a course called the Social Media Bootcamp, which we run to this day, and it's part of the membership for CIBN Connect. Those who come to network also learn things about online marketing, because every business owner needs to know that. You can't grow a business or hit your first, milestones of 150,000 a year if you just don't understand that stuff. So we've made it part and parcel of the whole thing, and it works together, and it does to this day.
That's a beautiful story. Thank you for transitioning to that. I want to show your bio right now so that you know how to reach out to Carrie. She's got her website here, thecibn.com. Her Facebook page, her LinkedIn page is here. And on those pages, you'll be able to be redirected as well to her YouTube channel as well, because she's got that as a connection as well. So, Carrie, I'm just blessed to get to know you. I've been on some of your networking groups and have connected with some amazing people too. And for those that are listening, please go to her page to learn more about connecting in this amazing community of connecting and networking together. So thank you. Would you stay on the line when we're done here? I'd love to chat with you just for a moment before we hang up. And any last words you'd like to say to the audience before we disconnect from the Connection Show?
Well, yes, there's one thing. I would like to say, go to the YouTube channel, CIBN TV, and look at the playlist. And I think one of the videos that Jill really liked there was in the playlist. It was in the Women in Leadership series, where I did a video about Esther. And I've also done one on Deborah and some other women, and there'll be more coming in that series, and I think that you'd really enjoy them. So it's one of the ways that I have tied my faith to my business, is to make those kinds of videos. But you'll see a lot of other things there in playlists too. Great help for you in social media, networking, business, and all kinds of other things. So CIBN TV on YouTube is where you find that.
Thanks for sharing that about those, because I definitely want to have people be redirected to that. So again, everyone, thank you so much for joining the Connection Show, where we come together to inspire hope, health, and healing in the world. Have a most blessed day, and thank you again, Carrie, for joining us.
From the beginning of time, God has commissioned women from around the world to mentor, encourage, teach, and train tweens, teens, college students, and young women to be courageous and fearless women of God. In 2023, Queen Esther's need to rise up to save our nation and the generations to come, receiving a crown of beauty for ashes, healing from uncertainty, being overwhelmed, the effect of social media, addictions, eating disorders, body image, busyness, isolation, loneliness, fear, anxiety, depression, bullying, hopelessness, and abuse. The time is now to become resilient Bravehearts for such a time as this. No longer be broken and become the best you can be. Learn from extraordinary women in breakout sessions. Hear speakers share on topics such as hope, health, healing, faith, love, joy, peace, purity, femininity, self-esteem, nutrition, healthy boundaries, leadership skills, career development. God has called older women to teach younger women that they are good enough and are wanted by a king who wants them to arise as resilient Queen Esthers and to live wisely, purely, and be good. Join us for 2 days at Yakov Theater in Branson, Missouri on Saturday, August 19th, 2023 and Sunday, August 20th, 2023 for Resilient Bravehearts Women Conference for such a time as this. Come in a day early to see Esther at Sight and Sound Theater.
Hi, I'm Jill Reynolds with Resilient Braveheart for such a time as this, coming to Branson, Missouri, August 19th to 20th, 2023. We will be meeting at Yakov's Theater, and I'm so excited for the event. No Longer Broken and Becoming the Best You will be joining us at this event. It's for all women of all ages, from 12 years old to 100. You don't want to miss this event. Come to Branson and be with us for this amazing weekend of hope, health, and healing.
Hello, my name is Brenda Ringwood, and I'm the founder of the Becoming the Best You movement, #BTBY, and I'm going to be in Branson, Missouri, speaking and working with Jill Reynolds at Braveheart workshops in August 19th and 20th in Branson, beautiful part of the country. But more importantly, this is a women's event. We women need to stick together. We need to encourage each other. We need to build each other up. We need to love on each other. We need to fellowship together. That's what we're going to do at this conference. We're going to love on you. So check us out. August 19th and 20th, Branson, Missouri at the Yakov Theater. Oh, what an amazing time this is going to be.
Hello, ladies. Hi, my name is Overseer D. Forbes. I want to talk to you all about being no longer broken. Listen, meet me there. It's August the 19th and the 20th. Ladies, you don't want to miss this. It's a place where you'll be safe, healed, and made whole. I will see you there.
Register now by going to braveheartworkshops.com.
Thank you for joining us on The Connection Show. Our show is made possible by your support. Please go to our website and click on the Affiliate Partners page now. You can support us either on Venmo or our Cash App today. We love our podcast guests and our social media subscribers. Our channels are made possible by you, our listeners. Please go to our website and go to our Contact Us page and click on all our social media pages. Make sure you click the bell on YouTube and subscribe, and the follow us button on Rumble. Our affiliate partners are featured on our show, and we thank you for supporting them and their products. Each of them have fabulous offerings with discounts when you mention Braveheart when you order. Please order today by going to braveheartworkshops.com and clicking on Affiliate Partners.